Father's Day, 1984. It was a quiet, overcast Sunday afternoon in Sydney until 50 bikers drew weapons in a suburban tavern car park and a nation watched in horror. What started as a brotherhood fractured into betrayal, bloodshed, and one of the deadliest days in Australia's history. This is the story of loyalty turned lethal. This wasn't a movie. This was the Milperra Massacre. Welcome back to the OMG, Outlaw Motorcycle Gangs of Australia, and Episode 2, Father's Day Bloodshed. The Comancheros had ruled the streets since the late 1960s, but by the 80s, cracks appeared in the very foundations of the club. At the end of Episode 1, we took you through it. The spark came when Comancheros founder Jock Ross was allegedly caught in a compromising situation with another member's wife. This violated one of the club's core rules. When confronted, Ross refused to face charges and instead split the club into two chapters. One he led, loyal to him, and the other included Anthony Snodgrass or Snoddy Spencer, who had lost faith in his leadership. The birth of the Banditos Down Under. The Birch Grove chapter, including Snoddy, disillusioned and seeking a new identity, turned to the US-based Banditos Motorcycle Club. When Snoddy Spencer visited the United States, likely during the early 1980s, he encountered the Banditos Motorcycle Club firsthand. What struck him wasn't just the size or notoriety. It was their ferocious unity, their sense of belonging, their rituals steeped in outlaw mythology. For Snoddy, who was already disillusioned by fractures within the Comancheros, it was like staring into a mirror that showed what loyalty could look like. The Banditos in the US weren't just wearing a patch, they lived it. There was a deep, almost militaristic brotherhood, but with raw defiance woven through every stitch of their red and gold. That encounter stayed with him. So when Jock Ross split the Comancheros and turned the club's foundations into a power struggle, Snoddy saw a different path, one that didn't just patch over problems, but burned the old colours and built something from scratch. That's when he reached out to Ronnie Hodge, the Banditos' national president in Texas, and asked him what would it take to become part of that legacy. Well, Ronnie agreed, marking the first time the Banditos had officially expanded beyond the US. It's one of those moments in outlaw history that carries the weight of a myth. A man standing at the crossroads, torn between a brotherhood he helped build and another that promised a new kind of loyalty. Countdown to confrontation. By mid-1984, the Comancheros were angered. Their brothers wore another patch and burned the ties that bound them. The split didn't just fracture friendships, it ignited a war. Clubhouses were attacked and vandalised. Members were assaulted and tensions escalated. The violence wasn't just about turf or drugs. It was deeply personal. According to Colin Caesar Campbell, former Sergeant-at-Arms, the feud was rooted in the bitterness of the split itself. Brothers were cut deep, a strong bond torn apart. These men were family. They were hurt. They were angry. This was no game. August 1984, the declaration of war. Tensions between the newly formed Banditos and the Comancheros escalated into open warfare. In the weeks leading up, Snoddy and Ross reportedly had a phone call in which they declared war on each other. This wasn't metaphorical. It was a signal that both sides were preparing for open conflict. Then it's war, so be it. The calm before. It was September 2nd of 1984, Father's Day. Many families were spending their day with their dads. For 14-year-old Leanne Walters, she had a present all wrapped up and ready for a dad later on. Down at the Vikings Tavern in Milperra, a British motorcycle swap meet had been advertised, and southwestern Sydney answered. Leanne wanted to go too. When other teen girls were drooling over some pop or rock star, this chick loved motorbikes. Her father's friend took her that morning. Possibly he too was a motorcycle enthusiast, and she may even have been getting a dad an extra item for the day. What should have been a public, family-friendly event became the stage for one of the most violent confrontations in Australian criminal history. Early that day, families were setting up market stalls, but beneath the chatter and chrome, something darker hums. Two rival clubs are preparing for something far more permanent than a parts trade. Bikes were fueled and weapons were gathered. Some came for bikes, some came for blood. The confrontation begins. Around 1 p.m, Ross led 19 armed Comancheros into the tavern's car park. They weren't there to browse bikes. They took up hidden positions, using walkie-talkies to coordinate, suggesting this was a premeditated show of force. Other sources state some of the Comancheros wandered off throughout the meet. They may have even been a little complacent about the whole thing. And it was believed that Ross went inside the tavern to check if there were other gang members present. Witnesses also say Ross himself then walked into the middle of the car park, deliberately exposing himself as a provocation, an attempt to draw the banditos into confrontation. Well, it worked. Around 30 minutes after the Comancheros arrived, 34 banditos came in, armed and ready. Both clubs encountered each other in the tavern's car park. What began as a standoff quickly spiralled into a violent confrontation. Weapons included firearms, chains, and blunt instruments. Gunfire erupts. According to multiple accounts, including eyewitness testimony and court findings, the first shot during the Milperra massacre was allegedly fired by Philip Leroy Jeschke, the Comancheros' sergeant-at-arms. The shot was reportedly accidental, fired into the air as tensions escalated during a verbal standoff between the two clubs. Just before that, Ivan Spara Romchek of the Comancheros had allegedly pressed a shotgun to the chest of the Bandito sergeant-at-arms, Colin Caesar Campbell, who managed to wrestle it away. The situation was already volatile, with both sides heavily armed and posturing for confrontation. That accidental discharge is widely considered the catalyst for the 10-minute eruption of violence that followed. In a matter of minutes, the car park turned into a war zone, which had bystanders running for their lives, meat organisers and stall holders abandoning their items and either running or hiding under tables. One woman hid under a car and took photos in the car park.
It was just a family day that just happened to turn into hell.
Over 30 shots were fired. When the smoke cleared, 7 people were dead. Robert Foggy Foghorn Lane, their sergeant-at-arms Philip Leroy Jeschke, and members Ivan Sparrow Romchek and Tony Dog McCoy. 2 banditos, their vice president Mario Chop Cianta, shot twice in the chest, and their sergeant-at-arms Gregory Shadow Campbell, brother of Caesar, shot in the throat and died at the scene. And one 14-year-old bystander, motorcycle enthusiast Leanne Walters, caught in the crossfire and struck by a stray bullet to the head, killing her instantly. But it wasn't over. There was a standoff. 28 were injured. 20 of those needed hospital attention. Jock Ross sustained a head injury but was not killed. 3 of the Campbell brothers, including Caesar, were seriously wounded. 1 would later die from complications of a wound. And Snoddy? He was present, but not involved in the feud. He allegedly sat in his car with a shotgun to provide cover for his men. Interesting. Police response and the aftermath. Law enforcement arrived to a scene of chaos. Wounded bystanders, shocked families, and local residents wondering what the hell just happened. According to witness accounts, paramedics were allowed in briefly to tend to the wounded, but it took police nearly an hour to fully gain control of the scene. The scale and intensity of the violence caught police completely off guard, prompting a major shift in how outlaw motorcycle gangs were policed in Australia thereafter.
Nothing on the trip over, nothing could have prepared you for what we walked into.
We have information received, a hold-up, possibly a person deceased at the Viking Hotel.
Can we have cars?
We've had a few calls on this one.
The police, who may have known about the rivalry, were unaware of the pending confrontation and were ill-equipped to handle the fallout on arrival. Dozens of arrests followed, which led to one of the largest criminal investigations in Australia's history. Milperra wasn't just a gang fight, it was a turning point. It changed how police operate, it changed how the public sees bikies, and it marked the moment when outlaw motorcycle gangs stopped being a subculture and became a national threat. Next time, how the bikies went underground and built criminal empires in the shadows. Don't forget to like, hit subscribe, and click that notification bell so you're aware when we're posting up episode 3, Crime and Consequence.